So in this video, we're going to do a quick explanation of how to do your itinerary. I think a lot of people were confused at the beginning because you guys were trying to work a little too backwards. And the truth is, as I explained to you guys, you cannot really figure out where you're going to go until you have all your graphs. So we're going to run through the itinerary. In this case, you want to understand what order you're going to these places in and try to find a path that makes the most sense. So I have a series of graphs that I created that you guys have seen a little bit about in the image graph videos. And now that we know there's all these different cities that I need to go to, right? We have to pass through the city of Nantes. We have to go to this city also, and we have to pass through this town. We have to go through Dinan. We have to go through all these different areas, Dole Breton, all of these things that we have to go to. So if you understand where I'm going with this, what you need to have for your itinerary is answer the basic question of where am I going to visit, okay? And for me, this was the region of Brittany in France, okay? What places will I travel to in this region? Okay, well, the way that I start off the trip would be going into Paris, right? And then taking a train into the region of Brittany because Paris is not in that region. So at the end of this blue line this way, you would see Paris. But I take this train that would go into Nantes. Now think about it. We had to kind of figure out what would be the best way. Should I go to Nantes and then Dole Breton and then Dinan and then Morlaix and then Brest and then come back to Nantes again? How should we do this, right? What would be the best way to go through these points, okay? And it kind of makes sense to not try to pass through things twice, you know? In fact, this village was one right now that I wanted to make sure that I hit, and I'm still working on finding a graph from this region, but this city looked pretty cool. So this is one town I would want to go to. And Rennes is also one of the biggest cities in the region. You could also see Nantes is another big one, right? So these are two cities that got left out so far from the itinerary, and I might go, modify this in a little bit and add those, okay? There's another city here that's kind of like, looks like it might be important. So that's something that I would look into. But so far, for all the graphs I have, I need to go stop in all of these cities. And according to the rules of the itinerary, you need to stay in each of these cities at least one night so that you can see the attractions that it is that you graphed, okay? So that's part of the presentation, that's part of the project, and this is why I gave you guys a budget, because I wanted you guys to learn a little bit about how the world works and all the different ways to travel around it, and also maybe motivate you guys to also find different graphs that we never would have found, right? So for me doing this project, I learned about a region of France I never would have explored. I learned about some landmarks I never seen and that I probably never would have found if I did not have to do this project. So now I am, pretty curious about this city too, because it had some graphs that I had already done, but it still looks like a pretty cool town to go check out. So I never would have heard of this city if I wasn't looking for specific archways and different things, right? So understand that you can go to Google and you can type in all the different, places that you have to go, but it might send you any kind of way if you just type them in any order. So try to figure out a logical order of where you're going to go to these cities. Then lay it out in one slide, okay? I think what I did here with one little map kind of explains it, okay? And then you would want to have a slide that lets us know the breakdown of where are you going and when. So the itinerary answers two questions, where and when. So the when is on this slide right here. You can see the itinerary gets broken down. There's a flight from LAX to Charles de Gaulle in Paris. Then the train goes to Nantes. 3 nights that would be spent there to see the 3 landmarks that I have. Then we take the train from Nantes to Brest. Then we would do 2 nights in that city. And then we would move to Morlaix And then from there, we would go to D9, and you can see that everything is accounted for, the order that it would happen. And then we return back to LAX, and you would see in the budget slide, which I'll cover in the next one, would be separate. Okay, so before you get worried about your budget and everything, this itinerary slide, this is going to be one of the shortest videos that I've made for this project, right? To make your itinerary, you have to figure out where you're going and when, and try to find a logical path that makes sense to you, okay? So even if you're doing only one city, I would like to have the same thing. I would like to see a map that says where you're going and when. And I've had a couple students already kind of complete this stuff because they've been really curious about every single piece of this, okay? So again, this is how you do the itinerary. The way that you would balance your budget would be that you would figure out how much everything costs from this section, okay? The next thing that you would also think about is maybe other things that would go in your budget, right? Such as, besides just lodging and transportation, you would probably need food, and you might need admission to some of these things, right? So transportation and lodging is obviously a big part of your budget, but there's more to it than that, right? Maybe you want to do a little shopping. Maybe you'd want to do another thing. So I'm trying to get you guys to figure out about how much things cost to do in the world, okay? And this is part of what we're using math to analyze. So I hope you guys can understand the itinerary process. Go to Google Map. If you're covering a big region, then this path that you take is kind of a big deal. So the itinerary sheet that it said on the checklist, I would like to change that so that it says itinerary slide. And you can organize this in Google Sheets if you like, but again, you need to present this to us in some kind of visible way, and that's where I think Google Maps is a nice way to do it. You can just keep adding destinations and show us the path that you'll take, okay? And you can kind of see what you'd be moving through and what you'd be leaving out if you went too straight. So good luck making your itinerary. It should be kind of a straightforward process, but make sure you look into the train prices and everything so that when you get to your budget, this part will not be that tough to get to, okay? So I hope you understand that you can't do your itinerary until you're done with all your image graphs, because these would be the places that you need to plan your trip to go visit. So good luck finishing your itinerary.